This article is about the STIC. The STIC stands for Systemic Therapy Inventory of Change. The STIC is a measurement and feedback system, and as such it has two major components. The first component is the measurement component, and there are two sets of questionnaires in the STIC. The STIC initial, which clients fill out before the first session, and the STIC intersession, which clients fill out before every session after the first. Clients fill these out on any kind of internet platform that they have. They can fill it out on a computer, they can fill it out on a laptop, they can fill it out on a cell phone, a tablet, and as soon as they fill it out, it goes right into the STIC database. The STIC initial consists of 6 system scales. Individual problems and strengths measures individual functioning. Family of origin measures family of origin functioning when the adults were growing up. The relationship with partner scales measures people's relationship, partners, marriages, etc., if they're partnered. Family household measures the family functioning with parents and or children. And the child problems and strengths measures the functioning of each child within the family, and relationship with child measures the functioning of the relationship that each parent has with each child in the family. The intercession has briefer versions of each of those 6 system scales, but it also has 3 alliance scales. Alliance scale for family therapy, an alliance scale for couple therapy, an alliance scale for individual therapy, each of which take a multisystemic perspective on the alliance. Each of these scales has 3 to 8 subscales or factors. So the scale kind of gives you the perspective, the total scale score of what's happening, let's say from 5,000 feet up, whereas the factors get down to 100 feet, and then if you go down to the items, basically you're right on the ground in terms of what we're able to look at and measure. The feedback system takes the STIC data, and as soon as the client hits send, the therapist gets an email saying you've got data. And we give the therapist a quick feedback report that focuses on the areas that are most problematic, and then all of the data are conjointly presented in terms of the wife's data is next to the husband's, next to the son's data, so you can compare how people are functioning within just at a glance. This study had several goals. The first was to test the invariance of the STIC factor structure across different samples. And to do that, we got a clinical sample of outpatients coming to a clinic, university-based clinic, but that also treats a lot of people from the community, and a sample from the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago that was a random representative sample of the United States. And we tested the factor structure of the STIC, looking at the factor structure of each scale as well as the scales as a whole on the clinical sample and the normal sample. And what we found was that the factor structure held up, and we had at least adequate configural and in cases metric invariance, which are explained in the article, across the 2 samples. The second thing we did is we tested the validity of the STIC and could it discriminate the clinical and normal sample. And I think with one exception, on one subscale, every other subscale differed significantly in terms of its score on the clinical sample and the normal sample. So it supported the validity of the STIC in order to do that. The last thing we wanted to do was we wanted to norm the STIC. So because we had significantly different clinical and normal samples, we were able to compare each client's score and come up eventually with distributions where you had the distribution of the clinical sample and the distribution of the normal sample, and you could see where they crossed, and we took that as the clinical cutoff, so we could begin to differentiate the clinical range and the normal range for each scale and subscale, which allows clinicians to know, is this something I need to worry about? If it's in the normal range, I don't. If it's in the clinical range, I do. And we could even measure severity in terms of how far it's into the clinical range. We believe that this article presents sufficient evidence that we believe the STIC can be used as an effective measurement and feedback system to study and provide feedback to therapists in couple, family, and individual therapy.